Right now, right now. 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 Oh, I got a real good feeling.
We try to bring you high-quality educational and informational content every single day. Why do you think the price is having such an anemic time? The news story of the hour. Jump onto the chart. Is this the beginning of a massive financial unraveling? We got to add a little addendum to the show map today. So we start here on the daily. Now, we've been looking at the RSI on Bitcoin's daily chart for the last several days. It always has been, but it's been increasing over the last 50 years since the government has been getting bigger. Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and welcome back to Coffee and Crypto Live. This is your week daily morning show where we bring you the latest and everything Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about the major crash that has taken place on Bitcoin. As you no doubt already know, Bitcoin has dropped right back down to the exact level that we have been expecting that it would drop down to over just the last 24 hours. As you guys know, we've been talking about this chart extensively. Bitcoin has this long-term uptrending level of support that basically governs the overall bull market. And we have discussed at length how Bitcoin would ride this downtrending level of support right back down to this uptrending level of support. And we have discussed at length how the confluence of those two levels would end up giving us the bottom on Bitcoin exactly at $94,000. That $94,000 bottom is also a bottom that would be taking place here on the 0.618 Fibonacci level. Something that you have to understand is that Fibonacci's work. Like, we can debate all day long about a lot of other technical indicators, but one thing that is absolutely rock solid is the power of the Fibonacci retracement. If you guys are a technical analyst of any kind, trader, investor, chartered market technician, anything like that, you need to heavily consider the 0.618 Fibonacci level. It is a level that gets respected over and over and over and over again. And we have been using it ever since this day right here on Monday, October 13th, when Bitcoin was trading at $115,000 to call Bitcoin dropping back down to $94,000. We said that we would drop down to between $94,000 to $100,000. The actual prediction was $94,000, but we gave it a range of $94,000 to $100,000 because we wanted to leave room in there for the mass psychological level of support at $100,000 to hold. Of course, that did not happen. Now, I have something that I need to convict you on. You need to listen up. You listening? All right. I'm about to give you some very much financial advice. Listen, this is financial advice. I am completely fine with going on record with this. I am totally fine with anybody considering what I'm about to say to be financial advice. Totally. Because this is the way you make money in the market. Am I going to tell you to buy Bitcoin right now? No, I'm not going to tell you to buy Bitcoin right now. That would not be financial advice, right? But what I will tell you, and this is financial advice, is that you will not make money if you get in the habit of buying high and selling low. And right now, Bitcoin is retraced 25% from all-time high. This afternoon is an afternoon where you really need to consider your principles. Have you been buying high? Have you been selling low? Did you just get shaken out? Why? Are you making an emotional decision selling your Bitcoin? Are you making a logical decision selling your Bitcoin? Have you done the exact thing that we have encouraged you to do over and over and over again on this channel, which is to always be prepared for worst case scenarios? Have you been ready for a bear market? I don't think we're going into a bear market. I personally believe that we're probably about to see some kind of a bounce. We might have a final flush out down to 88 to 90, which we're going to talk about. But at some point in the next $7,000 below us, you are probably going to have a bounce. And there's a pretty strong likelihood that it's going to be attempted right now. We'll see. But do you believe in Bitcoin? It is days like this where that resolve is tested. Are you selling? Were you buying up above 100 and considering selling now? Because if you continue to do that throughout the rest of your investing career, your investment account will be a continual drain on your net worth rather than an activity which is building your net worth. You must do a couple of things to adopt the correct principle, which is that you need to buy low and sell high. And yes, this is financial advice. This is 100% financial advice. You can take it to the bank. Anybody who doesn't like it can shove it. This is how you make money. You need to put yourself in a position where you are comfortable buying markets that look like this. This is an ugly market. Like, this looks very ugly. Very ugly. And if you want to make money, you have to understand and accept that it is this exact moment in markets that you build wealth. Now, I'm not saying that Bitcoin can't go into a bear market here. It can. We are on the gates of a bear market. Bitcoin could go lower. But you need to be considering whether or not you should be buying and selling and when. The financial advice I'm going to give you today, and this is financial advice. I'm never going to give you financial advice on when you should buy and sell Bitcoin. But the financial advice I will give you is this. I'm going to write it out, make it plain as day. You need to buy low and sell high. Real simple, hard to implement. You understand what I'm talking about, right? I mean, you look up here at these peaks. These are where all the inflows are happening on ETFs. You look down here at these lows. These are where all the outflows are happening. Why does so many people not make money investing? A couple of reasons. Number one, because they think they're investing, but they're actually trading because they keep screwing around with their portfolio every 5 minutes. They keep saying, oh, well, I'm going to buy here. I'm going to sell. Leave it alone. Take your sell button, throw it against the wall for 10 or 15 years, and wait. And just wait. Just give it time. Why do you think the idea of retirement investing works? Because it does, by the way. It works. Why does it work? Because when you invest for retirement, you break your sell button for 40 freaking years. Now, I'm not advocating that you have to wait 40 years, right? But you have to set aside a time period and say, I am not selling come what may until X, Y, Z in the third date. For me, that's 2040. I am not selling any Bitcoin until 2040. And I'm going to do everything that I possibly can to ensure that this stack of Bitcoin I have does not need to be liquidated. In other words, that I never put myself in a position where I have to sell my Bitcoin to cover operating expenses for our business or for our family. And number two, I'm going to make sure to manage all debt and liabilities in such a way that I am protected against ever having to sell Bitcoin, because what's going to end up happening is if I don't do that, and if you don't do that, you're going to end up selling Bitcoin at the worst possible time, and you're going to be an unprofitable investor. So, with all of that said, because that's the most important thing, let's read the chat a little bit, and then we have a lot of technical analysis to do, because now that Bitcoin has completely, fully hit our price target, having dropped last night, early this morning, down to $94,482, now we need to discuss where we're going next. All right, let's go ahead and read some chat. Really appreciate all of you guys for being here. We have almost 400 people in chat. If you're new here, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Jeb, what's up, bro? A lot of fear in the markets for no reason. The reason that people are afraid right now is because Bitcoin dropped below $100,000. So I wouldn't say it's no reason, but what I will say is that there are not that many fundamental reasons why Bitcoin should be below $100,000, other than the fact that the market just needed to have some correction. That people just wanted to take profits. I mean, it's at the end of the day, we can sit here and argue all day about why the market did what it did, but the bottom line is it did, right? And so we expected the Bitcoin would drop down to 94. The reason it happened, partially, is because of the magnetism of the uptrend, right? Bitcoin goes through these massive rallies. I mean, guys, seriously, Bitcoin started the rally at $75,000, rallied $50,000. Bitcoin right now is still $20,000 higher than this previous bottom over here in April of this year. And so what we really need to consider is that what we might be doing, just consider, what we might be doing is we might be zooming in and looking at the market like this. It doesn't look great. It really doesn't. I mean, this is like a curved, falling over trend line right here, right? Market's just kind of parabolic moving to the downside, right? Doesn't look great. But what we have to do, and I've always thought of myself as the voice of reason in the cryptocurrency, in the cryptocurrency space, what we have to do is we have to zoom out. And you have to understand that what Bitcoin is doing is that it has been on a multi-year, multi-100% march ever higher. We've set higher low after higher low after higher low, higher high after higher high after higher high. Bitcoin is in the most fundamentally strong, well-structured bull market in its history. And there are a few things that could happen from here that could break the bull market. It's true. I am not prepared to say that this correction is over until we get some technical confirmation. Let me restate that. I am not going to tell you that we are done bottoming until we get some technical confirmation. But what I will say is that I am quite happy with these levels as entries. However, it is also prudent to leave certain amounts of cash down here for buys at like $50,000 to $75,000 in case we go down there. You want to make sure that, number one, your family, which is your own little company, right, is solvent. In other words, can pay all of its bills in the event of a major bear market. And ideally, you have some cash and maintain enough liquidity to buy the dip. And this is something that I am learning, right? I have been doing this for 8 years. I have been in the cryptocurrency space for over half of Bitcoin's existence. The vast majority of altcoins that exist have been here for less time than I have. I am the old geezer in the crypto space. This is one of the oldest YouTube channels still on air in the crypto space. And I still have a lot to learn. And something I'm learning is I bought a lot of Bitcoin up here, like 4, 5, 6, 10% off of all-time high. I'm learning, like, you know what? I should just put a trailing limit order 15% off the all-time high and buy nothing within 15% of ATH. In which case, most of these, a lot of these buys over here that happened at 120, that happened at 112, 114, 115, they wouldn't have happened up there. They would have happened at 105. I don't mind. I know that Bitcoin's going to $1 million. I am betting a huge amount of our financial future on that. But I'm learning as well. And like I said, one thing I'm learning is, hey, let's hold on to some more capital, because these kind of corrections are going to happen. The lie that you tell yourself is that Bitcoin is just going to go up and to the right forever. It's never going to have a 10% correction ever again. It's going to start looking like the stock market. That's just not true. It's going to take a long time before we ever get to that, and we probably won't anyway. Bitcoin is, for the very long-term foreseeable future, going to see 25, 30% drops from time to time. And so that's one thing I'm learning. I'm still dumping cash into Bitcoin, but I wish I had more. I wish I hadn't have deployed so much a few weeks ago, a few months ago, had have held on to more of it. I mean, I did call for $94,000 after all. I was one of the first people calling for 94K. Everybody else was expecting, oh, we're going to go to 180 by the end of the year. I said, no, we're going to go to 94 to 100 first, and then maybe, but we got to drop down there and see how the market responds to 94 to $100,000 first. Okay, so what I'm seeing right now on Bitcoin is not, it's not the most encouraging yet. And that Bitcoin is basically moving straight to the downside. And on this bottom that we saw happen, Bitcoin dropped all the way down to $94,000, bounced and rallied back up to $97,000, and now we're falling right back in the same direction. I would like to see whether or not Bitcoin is able to put a bottom in here. But as I said, it's going to take some time before we get some really strong confidence as to whether or not the bottom is in. It's far too early, far too early to be calling with any kind of confidence that the bottom is in. Bitcoin has dropped down to $94,000 exactly as we have predicted. Ever since Bitcoin was at 116, it's fallen $21,000 to our price target. But what we need to be watching out for now is the bounce and the recovery. So let's kind of back up and do some actual technical analysis. We've talked about the overall, methodology here and what we should be doing in the cryptocurrency space. But let's actually do some technicals. Is the bottom in or not? Is the bottom in or not? By the way, I do want to address some fake news that was running around Twitter this morning. No, Michael Saylor did not sell Bitcoin. Something like 40,000 Bitcoin was moved from one wallet to another, but he did not sell any Bitcoin. That is objectively false. Michael Saylor himself even responded to the tweet that was claiming that, saying that it was false. So no, Strategy has not sold Bitcoin. So if you see that news, that's not news. That's a lie would be the word for it. It is a lie. All right. So let's go ahead and do some analysis here on Bitcoin. The first thing I want to point out is that this market has been absolutely beautiful from a technical standpoint. It's been absolutely gorgeous. Bitcoin has built pattern after pattern after pattern after pattern, and it has just been an absolute joy to watch. And Bitcoin is doing the exact same thing right now. And the reason that we enjoy seeing these kind of things as analysts is because it gives us some kind of clue as to what Bitcoin might do next, especially when the patterns are this obvious. Right? So we have 3 major market cycles ever since this fateful day right here in early January of 2024 when we saw the ETFs approved. By the way, Just want to give you a quick refresher. Bitcoin ETFs have been around for less than 2 years. Alex O Crypto in chat, shout out to him. Make sure to go subscribe to his channel. He's got a lot of great content on YouTube and on X. Welcome to the live stream, my friend. Bitcoin has built, ever since this ETF launch, 3 very similar patterns. 1, 2, 3. We are currently in the third of those patterns. And there are a great number of similarities. The first and foremost is that we have a major rally that runs into the pattern. As you can see, has happened 3 times. From there, we have our correction, and this correction takes on one of 2 different major characteristics. 3, after we have the correction, we fall back down to this uptrending level of support. And 4, we bounce off of that uptrending level of support to move on to the next correction. And so this ends up being almost a, is this pre-recorded? No, it is not pre-recorded. We're live. This ends up being almost a pulse that Bitcoin has. We rally and drop back down to the uptrend. Rally, drop back down to the uptrend. Rally, drop back down to the uptrend. This is absolutely beautiful, more or less sine wave movement going on Bitcoin. It is extremely predictable, it is extremely cyclical, and it surprises people every single time. It did not surprise us, which is why, once again, we called for 94,000, because that was the level that this was pointing at. And again, I've told you from the beginning as well that we might have a flush out down to $90,000 to fill the CME futures gap. We're this close to the CME futures gap, we might as well fill it anyway. It's probably going to happen. So just because we fill the CME futures gap and V-bottom down there doesn't necessarily mean the bull market's over. All right. So let's go into a little bit more detail here. Let's look at the structure of these corrections so that we can get some ideas about where Bitcoin might be bottoming out. Well, as I said, there are 2 different major methods by which Bitcoin corrects. The first one was here in basically the majority of the year of 2024, and Bitcoin more or less just traded sideways in time. This created this like plateau effect when we hit $75,000, and Bitcoin traded sideways in time, and since it spent so much time trading sideways, it didn't need to see a major crash because the correction happened in time. Remember, all corrections, whether they look like this or whether they look like this, these corrections are what are known as distributions. These are buyers selling, for previous buyers that are selling to pull profits out of the market. And so if they do that rapidly, you see this flash crash, which is much more akin to what we're seeing right now. That greater velocity is probably driven by fears of the 4-year halving cycle. On the other hand, when people are very confident in the market, there tends to be more of this kind of just sideways grind while sellers and buyers do their thing, and early buyers sell to new buyers who are setting up for the next movement. So in this case, Bitcoin grinded sideways, and so therefore it didn't need to drop back down to the 0.618 because it got the same level of correction. It just did more of it in time. If we look here at this correction from top to eventual bottom, Bitcoin grinded sideways for 180 days. And since it spent so much time trading sideways, we only need to drop back down to the 0.382 Fibonacci level. All right, that's the first of the 3 major market movements that we've seen so far this cycle. Bitcoin then bottomed and rallied up to $109,000. Now, Bitcoin spent a good bit of time above 100K, and so when we dropped below $100,000 here, and especially when we came up and back-tested the underside of $100,000 here on the 21st of February 2025 and rejected, that led to a major capitulation when we were not able to recover above 100,000. We're going to want to remember this because the very same thing might end up happening over here in our current market. If Bitcoin tries to rally up to 100,000 and rejects, you will likely see a major cascade as people go long expecting a solid breakout above $100,000 that may or may not materialize. And if we do reject from the underside of 100K, then that is probably going to lead to a major correction. Getting a little bit off topic here, but as you can see, that's actually exactly what happened yesterday. Bitcoin dropped down to 98. We rejected off of 100,000, and that is what led to this massive crash, which sent us right back down to $94,000 almost immediately. If you remember, we talked about Bitcoin dropping down to $94,000, and I did go on record and say, now I'm going to let you know what I said, whether I'm right or wrong, but I did say that Bitcoin would probably spend less than 7 days below 100,000 because the buy pressure would be so great that we would V-bottom and bounce back up. We'll see. I don't know. I do, however, believe that the bottom will be in before December 15th, which is something that we posted this morning. Anyway, looking at the correction characteristics, we see in this case, Bitcoin rallied up to 109, and we dropped all the way back down to the 0.618 Fibonacci level, which just so happened to line up perfectly in confluence with the previous all-time high. It was absolutely gorgeous. It was absolutely gorgeous. It was so easy to find the confluences, right? It just showed up very, very clearly. The 0.618 Fibonacci was here at 75,000, and then that was also a previous all-time high. We called $75,000 back in February, right around here when we started to capitulate and fall over. I think it was February 24th, February 25th. You guys can ask Grok to find the prediction on YouTube, and it'll be able to pull up the timestamp and the video of us talking about this back in February. Feel free to go look into any of my predictions. We called for $75,000. I was at the time correctly capitalized, which this is a mistake that I made in this cycle. I was undercapitalized because I got too excited buying up here, thinking that we were going to have a blow off top, but Bitcoin ended up actually proving what we were saying right, which is it's just stair-stepping. We're not seeing blow off tops anymore. So at this point in time, I was sitting on $180,000 of capital. I was properly capitalized moving into the correction. And so when Bitcoin dropped down to $74,000, we deployed between 74 and about 90, right at about $180,000 worth of cash into Bitcoin. I was very happy with that acquisition. And of course, what we ended up doing is we kept just deploying more and more cash up here because we expected the Bitcoin would go parabolic. Didn't happen. We were a little bit too bullish, and we've adjusted our investment thesis because of that. But anyway, the point is, and the reason I'm telling you that, by the way, is because I'm going to tell you what we do right. I'm going to tell you what we do wrong. You know, here's the definition of bragging: saying, "Hey, look at me, I'm so cool," and you never share when you made a mistake. You know why? Because that's called lying. It's called a lie by omission. I'm going to tell you what we did right. I'm going to tell you what we did wrong. I got a little bit too trigger happy with that buy button on the way up here, listening to the likes of Sailor saying, I'll be buying all-time highs for the rest of time. That's really not great investment advice. It's really not. That is not good investment advice. It is a good idea to hold on to capital in anticipation of corrections, especially when you are predicting that they're going to. Okay, so we nailed it on this one. Absolutely nailed it. I could not have played this part of the cycle better. Played this part of the cycle over here relatively well. We've adopted some different investment philosophies that we've been experimenting with. I definitely have some things that I'm going to change, but I'm excited to be buying here. We're 25% retrace from all-time high. All right, so what gives? Why am I going through all of this? This correction, we traded sideways in time, so we didn't need to go down to the 0.618. This correction, we had an underside test below $100,000, which dropped us very aggressively because of the FUD, and so Bitcoin dropped down to the 0.618, bounced and rallied up here to $126,000. Now, we get to our current market, and why I think the bottom is close, and why we've been calling for $94,000 for the better part of the last month. In fact, it's been more than a month. We made the call on October the 13th, 2025. We called for $94,000. And the reason for that was because the 1010 crash over here, this giant $20 billion liquidity flush, signaled that we were going to have a very steep sell-off because of the lack of investor confidence, because of how many people got absolutely annihilated. The sentiment was brutal. I have seen corrections way worse than what we're going through right now. Sentiment after 1010, I'm not sure I've ever really seen too much more worse than that. That sentiment was awful. It's absolutely terrible. And so after 1010, we said Bitcoin is going back to the 0.618. It's going to drop down to $94,000, which is exactly what happened. We said the convergence of this downtrend and this uptrend and the 0.618 would give us a bottom at 94. And then we have talked extensively about how Bitcoin may end up having a temporary correction back down to fill the CME futures gap. It's kind of one of those things like, since I'm in Walmart anyway, I'll just go get some milk. You know what I mean? Since we're already down here at 94,000, wouldn't it kind of make sense? I mean, you can see our drawings here, right? These are drawings that we put here like a week and a half ago on CME, right? Since we're at 94 anyway, wouldn't it kind of make sense for Bitcoin to just flush down and fill the CME futures gap? I mean, look, the CME futures gap is right there, and we're right here. Look, there's the top of the CME futures gap right there at 92,625. Doesn't it make sense that we are going to drop down to fill the CME futures gap? I am expecting at this point that we're going to drop down and fill the CME futures gap. So we get to our first piece of, we'll call this wisdom. And that is, if you have a liquidation, as many of you do, above $90,000, you may want to seriously reconsider that liquidation price. Either one, stopping out of the long, or two, and this is far more risky, so please tread carefully, adding capital to lower the liquidation. Because there is a massive liquidation cluster at $89,000 just begging to get sniped. And there's a little bit smaller one at 85. It's a huge liquidity cluster right there at 90, begging to get hit. And if it does, here's what ends up happening. You see all the longs get liquidated. And as soon as Bitcoin liquidates those longs, we filled the CME futures gap. And you see everybody and their mother ape into Bitcoin because the coveted Bitcoin CME futures gap is now filled. And you see the final wick that ends this correction. Okay. So that gives us our two scenarios. I'm going to let you pick which one you believe in, but I'm going to tell you what the two scenarios are here. Both of them take up, in my opinion, the vast majority of the likelihood of what is going to happen relatively soon. Either one, Bitcoin scam wicks as low as about $89,000 to $90,000 for one final flush out, hits all of those liquidations, fills the CME futures gap, causes absolutely everybody, even the people that are extremely convicted about Bitcoin's future, to crap their pants thinking that we're going into a bear market. And then right when max pain is being achieved, right when you see fear and greed at its absolute lowest, that is when the market makers step in. That is when the institutions step in. That is when the smart players step in, and they buy the crap out of Bitcoin between 89 and 90. 89 and 93. At that point in time, we have to see whether or not Bitcoin can actually build a rally out of that. Because if Bitcoin does drop down and is trading at $89,000, a large amount of the industry is going to believe that we've entered into a bear market. The floor on Bitcoin will probably fall out for the next couple $1,000s. I mean, we're setting very significant lower highs and lower lows. Very strong downtrend. The floor will probably drop out from under Bitcoin. Probably this afternoon. Maybe even while we're here on stream. I mean, it's kind of looking like it might do it while we're talking. The floor is probably going to drop out from under Bitcoin as buyers are too scared to buy because the CME futures gap is right beneath us. Okay, let's show this. CME futures gap is, let's go ahead and draw it on the chart here. CME futures gap is right about here. CME futures gap is pretty much right here. I don't know about you, but I don't want to go into a long when my liquidation price, or not my liquidation price, sorry, we don't allow ourselves to be liquidated, when our stop loss would have to be in the CME futures gap. What I'm expecting most profitable traders are doing is they have their limit longs set at $91,500 to $92,000, which means that the panic sellers are in full swing and the buyers are not currently buying. They're waiting for a couple $1,000 dip. So we're going to go over to Twitter. Bitcoin fills CME futures gap within 24 hours. This is our prediction. I think within 24 hours, Bitcoin's going to fill the CME futures gap. That's what I expect. And it's very, very, very obvious. Because seriously, I mean, think about this. Everybody in chat who's ever made a single profitable trade, you just tell me. If you've ever had a single profitable trade as Bitcoin's going lower here, would you long here or would you wait for it to drop another $2,000? Like, there's literally only two good places to take a long here. Either in the CME futures gap or after we've established a strong uptrend. Otherwise, you're catching a falling knife. The only reason we longed the other day, and it was a very small long, by the way, it was more so an experiment. I mean, it was literally like, the long size was like a couple $1,000s. It was not that big. The only reason we longed over here was because we were thinking that Bitcoin would show some kind of bounce at 100K. It flushed straight through it. Right? There's no way in hell I'm longing right now as Bitcoin's just diving. Why would I do that? Not doing that. I'm tempted to put a limit long down here like 91, but I'll think I'll pass. I really do. And this is why on X, I mean, I've posted so much today. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. But I said earlier, if you have longs, I said Bitcoin could go as low as 90K and the bull market survive much lower. We're heading much lower. I said over here somewhere, you guys will have to come find it, but If your liquidation is anywhere above 85K, they'll hunt you. If your liquidation is at 89,000, congratulations, you're the reason we're going there. This was 15 hours ago. It's probably what's going to happen. Now, maybe not. It's possible that we don't. So, look, if we don't, then great. But what I will say, and this is my counsel, is that if you're going to go into a long to try and catch the bottom, it's a little bit too early to do that. If you're in a long and you're trying to not get liquidated, you need to be prepared for the possibility of a drop down to $90,000. So yeah, when was the last time Bitcoin didn't claim a CME futures gap? It's been a very long time. I believe the last CME futures gap that did not get filled was in 2022. Let's take a look at that. The last CME futures gap that didn't get filled. Let's look around here on price action. I believe it was in 2022, and it's down at like tiny little one right there. Yeah, the last CME futures gap that didn't get filled was down here at $20,000. I'm confident enough to say that that's never going to get filled. Bitcoin is not going to revisit $20,000. You don't need to worry about that. But this is the only other CME futures gap that has never been filled. So, you know, people say, "Oh, the CME futures gap's a self-fulfilling prophecy." Here's the thing. Most technical analysis is. The reason that it works is because it works. It's because it taps into fundamental mechanics of how the universe works, and it also taps into fundamental mechanics of how human psychology works. So, is it possible that we don't fill the CME futures gap? Absolutely. It's absolutely possible. If you're in a short, you might want to take some profits. In fact, you probably should. I mean, you probably should. Like, I wouldn't be necessarily shorting here because we've already had most of the run. Like, I mean, how much farther? You're just shorting when RSI is this bottomed out? Probably not a great move, right? If you're going to buy, spot, long-term, great move. I think that's fantastic. Love it. We've been trying to buy with extra cash. We've been trying to throw in, right? But I do think that the possibility of us dropping down and filling the CME futures gap is pretty high. All right, so let's talk about what happens after that. What happens after that is after we fill the CME futures gap, that is when much of the smart capital on the sidelines might be more inclined to jump in. Might be more inclined to say, okay, we flushed the CME futures gap. We're now capable of entering into longs. Right? Because you've got to understand, Bitcoin right now, we just move both of these lines temporarily, is sitting exactly on the 61.8. I do think that there probably are people going long here, but they're probably keeping their liquidation, their stop loss at like $89,000, and they're targeting the all-time high. That's the only people that's the only smart people who are making trades right now. Is they have a liquidation or a stop loss, I should say, down below $90,000 because they want to be able to account for that CME futures gap. But honestly, 61.8 is very powerful. Bitcoin probably will hold it. But again, with that CME futures gap right there, it does add a bit too much of a question mark for most people that are handling a lot of money on leverage who actually know what they're doing. So just something to consider. The buying pressure is probably coming soon, but that flush could happen. Now, I do also want to point out, I mean, we're right here on this downtrend, perfectly finding support on it, exactly as we've talked about. And then Bitcoin is also perfectly on that uptrend for the overall bull market. We're at the exact confluence. So if you're on like a 5x or a 10x leverage long, it's not a bad entry. But if you're doing something like 20x, 30x, 40x, something like that, you're gonna get you're running a very high possibility of getting stopped out. Now, I do think that there are two major scenarios here. I do think that in the next few days, the future of the Bitcoin bull market will be decided. I do think in the next few days, the validity of the 4-year halving cycle is going to be tested. If Bitcoin starts trading consistently for several days below $90,000, I have turned into a bear. I am going to be a 4-year halving cycle person again and say Bitcoin's probably going into a bear market. First stop, 75K. That's if Bitcoin cannot hold 90,000 or so. If it starts spending days below 90, that's where I'm saying, okay, we're in a new phase of the market. The uptrend that we've been talking about all year has broken, which means that all bull market support structure has broken. I mean, we've already had the 50 weekly moving average, of which there have been a great number of acolytes. Sorry, the 50 weekly moving average, which have a lot of support. That's already been broken, right? So there's a great deal of bearishness in the market right now. A great deal of bearish technicals in the market right now. But one thing I will also say, and this is why I'm leaning in the direction that this is the bottom, and I do want to say that. I'm leaning very much in the direction that this is the bottom. Somewhere between where we are right now and filling the CME futures gap is the bottom. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and post that over on X. Somewhere between where we are right now, 94,300. It's probably the bottom. We're probably at the bottom. There's good reason to believe that we're at the bottom. Again, flush out down to 91, 92,000, fill the CME futures gap. Absolutely could happen. Absolutely could happen. Now, I also want to mention this. The death cross. The death cross that so many people fear in this market structure that we have seen with these corrections that drop us back to this uptrend, all of that jazz. The bottoms have been found basically on the same day that we saw a death cross. Excuse me. On August the 8th of last year, we saw a death cross. Bitcoin was trading at $62,000. And by the way, yes, in August of last year, Bitcoin was trading at $62,000. Keep that in mind. That was basically the exact bottom. The death cross itself happened 3 days after the exact bottom at 49,000. The next time we had a bottom, we saw the death cross happen. 50 dropped below 200. Bitcoin bottomed out the next day at $74,400. The next day we hit the bottom. Right now we're having the death cross come in. The death cross is almost certainly going to print tomorrow or the next day. That signals the bottom. I need you to keep that in mind. That signals the bottom. Now, you also need to keep in mind, because this is another data point that you should pay attention to. When we saw the death cross here, Bitcoin actually went on to keep dropping, bounced, and fell into a bear market. Okay, so the death cross has mixed impacts, but the impact that I want you to understand is that generally speaking, in a bull market, the death cross is actually a good thing. In a bear market, typically it actually means the bear market's happening. So, here's the point. The manner in which Bitcoin responds to this death cross, i.e. how it trades in the next month, this death cross is certain. It will happen. It is a matter of fact, Bitcoin is down $17,000 lower than the death cross, than the moving averages are right now. It will happen. The death cross is going to happen. So that's a foregone conclusion. The way that Bitcoin responds to that death cross over the next month is going to tell everything. I have said this before. I will say this again. Whether or not the 4-year halving cycle is dead or not will be confirmed by the end of January. Will be confirmed by the end of January. And also, here's the other thing. Sometimes it's helpful when we go to the worst case scenario and we kind of internalize that. What if Bitcoin goes into a bear market? What if Bitcoin did go into a bear market? Is that really that bad? Is that really something that we should be concerned with? Us getting better entries? Should we really be that scared of that? I mean, as Bitcoin drops right now and might even be visiting the $93,000 range pretty soon. Is that really something we should be concerned about? By the way, I just want to point out, our prediction for the last month has been 94,000. Our current bottom is $94,107. Is that really something that we should be that concerned about? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that what you end up seeing happen is you see that Bitcoin drops down to possibly that you possibly see a drop down to like 75,000 in a bear market, and then maybe that's the bottom. That would still be a bear market. It'd be a break of structure. It'd be a massive break of structure. But so long as our current structure is maintaining, which is that long-term uptrend, Bitcoin's fine. And so I just want to seriously encourage you. This market is an excellent litmus test of where you are spiritually. If this is rocking your boat at all, like at all, something needs to change in your life. Something needs to change in your life. Either you're overexposed, you're over-leveraged, you are not working hard enough, you're not making enough money, you put yourself in a position that you're going to need to liquidate Bitcoin, sell Bitcoin at a very low because you don't have savings, whatever it is. Maybe you're greedy. Maybe you're like, I'm never going to be happy unless Bitcoin's at $1 million a coin. Whatever it is. The way that you are emotionally responding to this market will tell you a great deal about your maturity, not just as an investor, but as an individual. Keep that in mind. For example, this is probably one of the hardest moments in markets that any of us have faced in a while. When you're in the gym, the time that you grow is when you're under the most significant pressure. When you're under the most significant strain. You are under some of the most significant strain right now that you have felt in a while. The way that you respond to this is going to tell you a lot about your strength. I'm not saying that to put you down. I'm saying that you're going to learn what you're made of right now. If you like what you find, great. If you don't, do something about it. You're going long 30x yesterday. Yeah, we were. I mean, it was a high probability setup. $100,000 is one of the strongest levels of support that Bitcoin has ever seen. Made sense that Bitcoin would attempt to bounce off of this. Didn't materialize. Got stopped out. Lost half a risk factor. Cost me basically nothing. I literally don't care. I do not care. Do not care. Is this group therapy? Hey, sometimes it's got to be. Look, this isn't all about technical analysis. This is primarily about you making money in the markets. So yeah. This is group therapy. Welcome to my therapy session. Welcome to my therapy session. All right. Guys, if you haven't already, by the way, make sure to check out Stampseed. Big fan of their products. Stampseed is going to allow you to print your seed phrases on titanium. You get this little hammer, you whack it with the stamp, and it's going to show you right here. You get to whack it. It's really fun. Like this hammer is just it's an absolute. It's just a joy. She's smacking stuff. And you can stamp your seed phrase into titanium. Now, Jeff, why would I want to do that? I'm not Iron Man. Why do I want to do that? The reason you want to do that is because titanium can withstand up to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which means that if your house burns down, you'll still have your Bitcoin. But you're all about self-custody and cold storage until the house fire comes. All right. Don't worry, gang. There will be a bounce to around 113. We shall see. All right. I'm killing it. What's up, players? Ooh, that was a liquidity Oh, okay. This is on Coinbase. That wick right there. Did you catch that? I was looking at Streamlabs. We're going to go lower, I think. That was a very interesting failure in the order book. That's interesting. That scam wick right there. Ooh, that's real interesting. Scam wick down to $94,028. Very interesting. That means that the order books are real thin. That means the order books are real thin, and that means that we might end up falling over because the sentiment is terrible, and this is a very, very, very tight range for Bitcoin to try and maintain with no order book. That's, yeah. We're on the 1 second chart right here. Let's just watch it. Answer my question, brah. Pew Pew Poom 2 said. Okay, Jeb, explain to me why your support zones matter more than we lost a 52-week SMA, the weekly RSI and bear just crossed on the monthly, labor data nosediving, and SPY about to play out midterm. Oh, I'll tell you why. Because these support zones that we're looking at are lower than those. If the support zones that you're talking about break, then we still have the ones we're looking at. If the ones we're looking at break, we got nothing left. That's why. That would be why. That'd be why. Because if the support zones you are talking about break, which is why I haven't made a big fuss about the 50 weekly SMA, is because there are other levels that Bitcoin can find support at, such as this bull market support uptrend that we've been talking about, or filling the semi-futures gap or whatnot. But if those break, whoo, that was an ugly wick. Ugh, right there to 94. That liquidity on, this is on Coinbase, y'all. The liquidity on Coinbase sucks butt right now. What is this? Where's the market depth? These wicks are awful. Right now, and it is true, you guys need to understand, right now is the single highest probability that we have seen in a very long time that we're going to see a bear market for the next 6 months. Absolutely. It's absolutely true. Jeb, get some feedback on my thesis. Let's see if I can find it. What'd you say? Love reading chat. Crypto is facing the threat of quantum. Nothing it can't sustain, it can't survive. Oh my gosh, very scary. Yeah. In this market structure, its first monthly death cross. Nope. One thing I will say that I'm encouraged by is the fact that Bitcoin dominance is actually growing. I'm sorry, not growing. It was dumping. Bitcoin dominance was dumping. This is very interesting to me. This is very interesting to me. Let's see if we can find Bitcoin over others. No, not that. Just others. Sorry. I've got to imagine that this is because people are sending money over to stables. Yeah, others are dropping quite a bit too. Yeah, I would say the dominance thing, BTC.D. Because at first I saw this and I was like, oh, look, Bitcoin dominance is dropping. That means people are buying altcoins. If people are buying altcoins, that means Bitcoin's probably going to go up. If people are confident in Bitcoin, they're probably buying altcoins. But what they're probably doing, the thing that's probably driving this movement to the downside on BTC.D is probably people selling Bitcoin into stables. It's probably what that is. Alrighty. See if Bitcoin's going to drop lower. These little liquidity flushes are just gross. Maybe this is a bottom. Maybe that's a bottom. I don't know. I do not personally like that the order books are thin enough that you're seeing this number. Look at these wicks. These are gross. 0.15%. Is this happening on other exchanges too? One happened here. Yeah, this is on Bitstamp. One happened here. That is shorts and longs. Got some interesting market dynamics going on over here on Bitfinex. That is not accurate data at all. What in the world? Okay, anyway. So yeah, we'll watch it here for a little bit. Stock market closing. Yep. Jeb used Binance. All right, let's look at it. Let's see what Binance is doing. No, not Binance Coin. BTC USD on Binance. Let's see. Yeah, no scam wicks that way. Never mind. That's one heck of a scam wick right there. Jeez, look at that. Negative 1.4% scam wick over on Binance. Yikes. Jeb, if the weekly close below 100K is a bull market done, it's not looking great. I'll tell you that. I mean, it's like I said, we are in, this is the most, the 4-year halving cycle advocates, this is the single most, this is the single most powerful moment that they have, yeah. So the weekly close is probably going to happen down here. Yeah, it's, I mean, we shall see. We shall see. At the end of the day, like I said, it comes down to either Bitcoin holds 90 to 94, that zone, or it doesn't. If it doesn't, that's where I am officially calling a bear market. Lo, you're saying 150K weeks ago. Hey, guys, you really need to stop taking what I've said out of context. What I said, and I'll live or die by this. I mean, if it's wrong, it's wrong. If it's right, it's right. What I've said, and you can go find out what I said on X, is that I think Bitcoin's going to go to 94, and then I think it's going to bounce up to 150. And that's going to take some time. That's not going to happen right away. That's probably going to happen next year. That's what we said. In fact, I can probably find that over here in our bookmarks. Let's see. There you go. October 31st. Our firm position since 10/11/25 down to 94 to 100K, followed by a bounce into 2026. Into 2026. And I also said, here's another one, October 27th. Here are the receipts. Read them for yourself. If Bitcoin holds above 116 to 118K, new all-time high within 30 days. It didn't do that. If Bitcoin does not hold above 116 to 118K, then no new all-time high within 30 days. That's what we said. If I'm wrong, I'll be wrong. But that's not what I said. I also said 90% confidence Bitcoin holds 90K, 99% confidence Bitcoin holds 50K, 99.9% confidence Bitcoin holds 38K. Just for anyone confused about my position. I do my very best to be as clear as I can. You can even see here our different scenarios, talking about Bitcoin going into a bull market or a bear market. If it goes into a bear market, it's going to go here. If it goes into a bull market, it'll go here. But you're probably going to have a bounce at 92 to 94, and then that's where you would probably go into a rally, and that would lead into Q1 of next year. We also have discussed at length about how institutions believe that we're going to have a very powerful Q1. We've been looking at Q1 for that bullishness. Here you go, October 22nd. As such, following our technical analysis and assuming a stair-step multi-year, 4-year halving cycle breaking bull market, our next target would be approximately $160,000 by the middle of next year at the 1.618 fib extension, which has been hit multiple times thus far. Here are the charts. As you can see, we were predicting Bitcoin dropping down to $94,000 in the first half of November. Okay? So that's what I said. Now, I might be wrong. I could be totally wrong. We could be totally wrong. We go into a bear market next year, and yes, I'd be wrong. In that case, I'm wrong. But over and over and over again, I've been really very clear, as best as I can, very clear about what I believe. When I talk about 100,000, 130, 150,000, I'm talking about the first half of next year. If we drop below to 100, if we drop below 90,000, then I've also been very clear that that prediction would be at that point invalidated, and we would be expecting a bear market to drop us as low as 50 to 75,000. And that's okay. If it does, it does. All right. What will happen in the bear market? All influencers real quiet since this happened. Yeah, I mean, this is look, it's what we said was going to happen. Everybody who watched our channel has seen it. So, yeah. I mean, we will see. Again, like I said, at all points in time, our invalidation has been if Bitcoin cannot hold above 90, not above 100, it could drop below 100, but if Bitcoin cannot hold above 90, it is most likely going into a bear market. And as we've discussed, that bear market would likely drop Bitcoin back down to somewhere between $55,000 to $75,000. It's possible it doesn't go that low, but that's probably where it would go. Hey guys, by the way, want to give a big shout out to iTrust Capital. If you guys have not already signed up for iTrust Capital, you absolutely should, because right now is a fantastic time to be loading up on some Bitcoin for the long term. The reason that you want to sign up and use iTrust Capital is because you will get access to institutional grade IRAs, traditional and Roth IRAs that will allow you to invest in Bitcoin spot markets while gaining the massive tax advantages thereof. When you invest with a traditional IRA, you are able to deduct the full $7,000 investment. Next year, it will be $7,500 per new IRS guidelines in adjustment with inflation. You'll be able to deduct next year $7,500, not $75,000, sorry. I'm so used to Bitcoin prices. $7,500 from your taxes, which means in that highest tax bracket, you will not have to pay those taxes because you can deduct from it. So on your earnings between $103,000 and $197,000, which a lot of you guys fit into, you're paying 24% taxes. If you invest in a traditional IRA, you don't pay 24% taxes on that $7,000. That's a really big deal. It's a really, really, really big deal. And on top of that, if you invest in a Roth IRA, that's a traditional IRA, you deduct this year. In a Roth IRA, you don't pay taxes in retirement. So imagine sitting on $500,000 or $1 million worth of Bitcoin, and in retirement you withdraw and you pay no taxes. That is incredible. So if you guys have not already, make sure to sign up for iTrust Capital. And when you do, you will be getting access to a $100 special funding bonus. When you deposit, when you sign up for iTrust Capital and deposit any amount of money, you will get $100 for free. Absolutely incredible. So if you haven't already, make sure to sign up for I Trust Capital, fund your account, and you will get a $100 special funding bonus. Go ahead and do this now so that you have all the architecture set up for January 1st when your contribution limits reset if you've already maxed out for this year. If you've already maxed out Roth IRAs or traditional IRAs, make sure to set this up right now so that in January, you already understand how the platform works. You get your new funding limit when January 1 hits, and you're able to start investing right away. By the way, you can also roll over 401ks to invest those into Bitcoin. You can also set up SEP IRAs, which is a self-employment IRA. You can see it right there, the SEP IRA, which will allow you to invest significantly more, almost a little bit like a 401k plan in the cryptocurrency space if you have your own business like I do, for example. So this is something that we're looking forward to taking advantage of next year as well. So guys, make sure you sign up if you haven't already. Big shout out to I Trust Capital. Thank you to them for sponsoring today's live stream. Let's keep looking at the chart. Bitcoin is looking like it wants to hold 94K. What a beauty. What a beauty. Don't you just love it when the market literally hits your price target on the spot? Like, wow. This is the minute chart. Whew. Look at that. The second chart. The wicks literally hit it. That is too funny. That is hilarious. That is too funny. Too funny. I mean, Christmas has come early for those of us in the predicting game. I mean, seriously, look at that. I'm not sure that we're done, but that's a thing of beauty right there. That's incredible. I love technical analysis. I love technical analysis. Someone said, Jeb, are you a Mormon? I am not a Mormon. I am a Christian. I am a Christian. I love Jesus. Now, the Mormons talk about Jesus also, I know, but yeah, there's one Bible. One Bible. And that Bible says in the book of Revelation that all revelation ended in Revelation, which means that everything written after the book of Revelation was written by the Apostle John is not accurate. So, I love all of you guys who are Mormons. I'm not one of them. I have a great deal of respect for you. I love you. I'm not. I believe in the 66 books of the Christian Bible. Once we break 94K, it's going to get ugly. Yeah, it might break. I'm not saying for sure that we're done. Like, I'm not saying for sure that we're done. But it is just very interesting that we hit it literally to the penny, which don't exist anymore as of yesterday. To the penny, Bitcoin hit our price target. Whew. That's just, man. I'm sorry. I mean, you got to celebrate a little bit. I'm not trying to rub it in, but that's fun. That's really fun. Guys, you have to step back and think. If we aren't in capitulation right now, what even would capitulation look like? Yeah. I've seen max capitulation many times, and this just screams max capitulation. That's right. You've likely said a lot of different things, but you for sure said it might go down to 91K, worst case scenario, then bounce. I've said a whole lot of things, and they pretty much all revolved around, since the 1010 crash, I have said Bitcoin will drop to $94,000 to $100,000, and my invalidation on that is a break and run above 116, which never occurred. We have said over and over and over again, and I don't know if it's the way I'm speaking. Like, I'm willing to admit if it's like me not being clear or something. Maybe I'm not being clear, but it's genuinely, as far as I can tell, and this is what you can ask Grok. Like, go over here, say, Grok, what have Crypto Jeb's calls been for the last month on Bitcoin? Ask the AI to scrub the entire internet. What have my calls been? It'll scrub my entire X and the whole YouTube channel and tell you. October 17th, dip to 92K to 94K, then 150K in Q1. 107 was a once in a generation buy. Possibly we could drop down to 94 to 100. gold to Bitcoin rotation starts. That has not happened as much as I would like. This is one that we were wrong on. I expected the gold rotation into Bitcoin to be a lot bigger. I'll give you that. That has not happened yet. Probably will at some point, but it hadn't happened yet. Bear case and ABC retracement to 175K could happen. Invalidation, see, this is what I'm talking about. Our invalidation of a drop down to 94 to 100,000 if we break above 119 to 120. If $103,000 holds, it's likely we'll never go below 100K again. 103 did not hold, so then we drop back down to 94. October 30th, 94K to 100K by the end of the year, bullish for 2026. We've said the exact same thing over and over and over again, and feel free to use the AIs to scrub everything I've made, because I know it would take hundreds of hours to scrub all of our content. The artificial intelligences can do it in like a couple of minutes, so feel free to do it. But you know, I might be wrong about 150K by the end of. But I really, for all of you guys, I want to be open to correction. I value so much you guys saying, Jeb, what about this? What about, I value that so much. I want to be as good of a technical analyst as I possibly can for all of you guys. But as far as I can tell, and as far as Grok can find on anything that I've written or recorded, we have said that unless Bitcoin reclaimed this level at 116K, Bitcoin was going down to 94. We rejected right on 116K and immediately went to 94. So, again, I am perfectly willing to admit when I'm wrong, but I just don't see where I am. So feel free, if you've got a link, if you've got a quote, point it out. Again, I told you, I expected the gold rotation into Bitcoin to be a lot bigger. By the way, though, that's not necessarily wrong yet. That actually reminds me of something I want to say. It is very possible, this is the Bitcoin over gold market. It is very possible that we're getting closer to the end of the Bitcoin bear market than you think. It's possible we've been in a bear market this whole time over gold. It's possible Bitcoin drops back down here, bounces and runs, and the rotation into Bitcoin happens, the rotation out of gold into Bitcoin happens later than we expect. That's very possible, right? So I do think there's going to be an enormous rotation out of gold into Bitcoin, but I think that's going to take a little bit longer now because we need Bitcoin to get us footing. Right. So there will likely be a major rotation, but that is going to take obviously more time than we originally anticipated, as you can see here. And a big part of the reason that this is probably transpiring is because of the lower interest rates and because of the quantitative easing and everything. And so people are, you know, there's a lot of things that are changing. And so the kind of the run over gold has kind of plateaued for a little while. It will end up probably coming back, though. I do think that gold is going to go to $10,000 by the end of the decade. I would be very surprised if it didn't. All right. Buy the dip, Jeb. I love buying the dip. BTC is way better in a bear market than ETH. Yep. Why would there be a major rotation, you think? Because gold is getting to a point of being overvalued and Bitcoin is getting to a point of being undervalued. There is a strong correlation between Bitcoin and gold, and generally one of them is running the show. If not one, then the other. And you can see that the overall multi-year trend has been that Bitcoin has gained value against gold, but Bitcoin has been losing value against gold for about a year now. I don't think that's going to last. I think that that's going to end up changing. By the way, something else we want to talk about here, and this is an important thing to mention, Bitcoin was attempting to hold $2 trillion market cap. That has now failed, which could possibly send Bitcoin into this kind of precarious correction here. So we need to keep an eye out for that. $2 trillion market cap was the exact same level as 100,000, right? Every $100,000 that Bitcoin grows, it grows by $2 trillion of market capitalization because the total supply is almost exactly 20 million. So a rejection off of the 2 trillion market cap level is significant, to say the least. So keep these things in mind. Bitcoin is in the highest level of danger of a bear market that it has been in a long time, but we also literally just watched Bitcoin hit our price target that we've been posting for the last month live on air. We just watched it happen. So again, it's possible that was the last flush out we need. I'm hesitant about saying that the bottom is in until the CME futures gap is filled, just because it's right beneath us. Why wouldn't we fill it? But at the end of the day, the bottom's probably somewhere close. There's a lot of liquidity down there at 90 that would love to get eaten. A lot of liquidity. So just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind. We're probably close to the bottom. But it is difficult to tell whether or not that is all the way there yet or not. All right, but I will say that as Bitcoin gets further to the downside here, it is getting very much overextended to the downside, and I do think that right now would be a foolish time to sell short. I do think that they would be a foolish time to do that. There are a ton of different reasons why Bitcoin could be bottoming. I mean, you look at the this support architecture here on the weekly chart RSI, right? Which, by the way, isn't great because this is basically a massive bearish RSI divergence against the entire market. So that could signal like, you know, a big correction. But then you also look at the monthly chart, MACD. This is something that Pew Pew Boom 2 was talking about in chat. That we've got this bearish MACD cross happening. That's not great, right? So there are strong arguments in both directions. These kind of movements seem to have kind of predicted previous bear markets. So I think my kind of hypothesis here is that if Bitcoin does hold 94K, it's because something truly is different in the bullish direction this time. And if nothing is different, then yes, this is a classical setup for a bear market. I'm new to this, and Jeb is a genius at this stuff. Thank you, Jeff Fletcher. I appreciate it. I've only been analyzing Bitcoin almost every single day for the last decade. Actually, it's been like 8 years, 3 months or so. But yeah, been doing this for a while. I have analyzed basically the entire Bitcoin chart many, many times. Pretty much the entire Bitcoin chart down to like the 4-hour chart. A lot of it down to the minute chart. There's probably pushing 10,000 hours of content on that. Yeah, there's probably at least 5,000 to 6,000 hours of recorded content on this channel. I wonder if that's something Grok could calculate. I'm curious. Let's ask. How many hours of content are on the Crypto Jeb channel? I don't know if Grok can calculate this, but if it can, it's going to be interesting. I'm going to guess it's 5,000. We have like 3,500 videos and another like 2,000 live streams. So I'm going to guess it's somewhere between like 3,000 to 6,000. I don't know if it can actually come up with that information. It's going to see if it can. What? Okay, so that's the videos. Yes, I knew the videos would be shorter, but what about the live streams? Yeah, so 916 hours of that. What about the live streams also? So it's estimating 916 hours of videos on the channel. Now, by the way, that's 916 hours of videos. There's a lot of cuts in there. So there's probably like 4,000 hours of work that went into it, because for every minute of content that's on the channel, there's generally 5 to 10 minutes of work behind the scenes of some kind. This is 1.5 hour streams. Okay, well, it says 1,000 hours, but I don't know, because that doesn't really take into account the live streams, because this is just videos, I think, isn't it? I don't know. Either way, quite a bit. Especially when you factor in everything that's happened off camera, like I said. Because, I mean, I don't just sit down and record. I mean, I've got to sit here and do a lot of analysis so I actually know what I'm talking about on camera. And a lot of those videos are edited, of course. All right. We're going to have to wrap it out here pretty soon. Hey, by the way, guys, if you're looking for a platform to trade on, 2Bit is fantastic. Highly recommend checking out 2Bit. Links in the description box down below for them. That's where we do all of our leverage trading. And guys, at the end of the day, one of the last things I want to say here before we wrap it out, because I got to get going and shoot today's video. One of the last things I want to talk about here is that the way that you succeed in life, I have found over and over again, whether it be in crypto, whether it be in relationships, in your health, in your career, your recreation, your social life, time and time again, the key to success, unsurprisingly for the Christian, is to find the truth. It's to find the truth. It's to figure out what the true principles are that should be governing your walk in whatever area it is you find yourself in. If you find yourself in investment, a principle that you will very quickly run across is risk management. If you are having any kind of relationship with any human being, you will find that listening before you speak is a valuable principle. If you are trying to manage your personal finances, you'll find that budgeting, in other words, having a written plan for your money, is incredibly invaluable. Successful people invariably build their success in one way, and everything else comes second. They figure out what the true principles are in the environment in which they wish to succeed. They adopt those true principles, and they bring their actions into alignment with those true principles. If they want a successful marriage, they listen before they speak. If they want a successful investment career, they buy low and they sell high. And they set up practices and principles and risk management techniques to ensure that they're able to do just that. If you want to succeed in your health, then you eat well. You manage what comes into your body, what goes out of your body. You exercise. And it is rather poetic that the common denominator of that entire pursuit is the concept of truth. Isn't it interesting how much our culture is consumed with the idea of your truth and my truth? What a toxic belief system that truth is anything other than a fact of nature that can be discovered just like gravity. It is truth that if you lie, people will not trust you. It is truth that if you never move, your muscles will atrophy. It is truth that proper preparation prevents poor performance. It is truth that consistency builds results, either in the right direction or the wrong direction. These are true principles. How sad of a culture, how sad of a reality it is that our culture wants to debate what truth is when it is so abundantly clear. I posit to you that truth is a law of the universe, just like gravity, just like the strong and weak nuclear forces, just like electromagnetism. And it is something that can be discovered, and it is something that should be adopted. And when you do adopt truth, and you bring your actions into harmony with truth, you will gain something called integrity, which is the state of being where your actions are in alignment with the principles which you profess to believe in, and those principles are true. Isn't it so beautiful, therefore, that if the way to success in any area of life is by finding truth and obeying it, isn't it interesting that Jesus Christ said that I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me? Isn't that interesting? If you are not a Christian, I will never judge you. I will never force anything on you. But I will encourage you, as I had to, consider that. Just consider that. Because for a few of you guys that were listening, you probably were nodding your head and saying, yeah, he really sounds like he knows what he's talking about. This whole figuring out what truth is and bringing your life into obedience with it, that really sounds like he's making a lot of sense. That really, that resonates with my soul. I really genuinely believe that that is the truth. And then I said, Jesus, and you said, wait, hold up. Seriously, consider it. I love you. I love you so much. And I've been wrong about things before, and I'll be wrong about things again. But one thing I 100% promise you I'm not wrong about is that Jesus Christ is the Lord, and giving your life to him is the best decision you will ever make. Pursue truth in all areas of your life, not just pursuing the truth, which is Jesus, but also other truths of life, such as consistency, integrity, risk management, etc. And your life will improve. Choose to ignore what I just said, and there will be natural consequences. In the same way that if I tell my son not to walk in the street, and he does it anyway, he might get hit by a car. Choose to ignore what I just said, and you will have to live with the consequences thereof. Find truth, adopt it, and obey it, and you'll be just fine. Just fine. I was an agnostic for 20 years. I was never foolish enough to call myself an atheist because how could you possibly prove that God doesn't exist? How is that a provable statement? I was an agnostic. I had my heart open to it. I said I would love it. I would love it. I would love it if God was real, if he was true. I need to see that, though. I need to have some proof. I need you to show me. And so a few times, I said, you know what? Maybe I'm just talking into the void. Maybe I'm just crazy. But I've been a YouTuber for 2 years, so I was already pretty used to just talking to myself, right? So I said, you know what? I'm going to talk to God. Worst case scenario, he's not real. Cost me nothing. Best case scenario, he's the king of the universe and he loves me. That's a pretty cool... I think that is a high risk to reward trade. Why not? So I asked him one simple thing. If you're real, if you love me, please show me. And he did. And he will do the same for you. Because the Bible says that all who seek shall find. So seek and you shall find. Of this I am sure. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. Hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for more content. I really appreciate all of you guys being here. We will continue to analyze what Bitcoin is going to do, especially as I go into shooting today's video. So stay tuned because that'll be coming out soon. Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed. Before I go, I do just first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.